Ladies and gentlemen, it has been 20 days since a young doctor was brutally raped and murdered in Kolkata's Ajikar hospital. Several questions remain unanswered, and it seems like the under-fire hospital of horrors is hiding a lot more than we could ever think about. Let's give you some context here. The morning of 9th of August, the parents of this 31-year-old doctor received 3 calls, and their world came crashing down. 3 calls. Times Network has access to the telephonic conversation between an Ajikar official, in fact she was the assistant superintendent of the hospital, and the victim's parents on the morning the body was found, and they were told that the patient and all that was told to the parents were allegedly lies. During the call, the assistant superintendent of the hospital can be heard asking the parents to come to the hospital as soon as possible, but not disclosing what had actually happened to her. Not just that, the assistant superintendent is also heard telling the parents that their daughter was probably died by suicide, essentially floating a fake theory. Here's, before I play these call recordings, I would like to tell you that media now does not authenticate the veracity of these audio clips. Let's listen in.
ওর শরীরটা খারাপ হয়েছে, আপনারা কি একটু আসতে পারবেন ইমিডিয়েট?
কেন কি হচ্ছে কি?
ওর শরীরটা খারাপ, আমরা ভর্তি করাচ্ছি ওকে, আপনি কি ইমিডিয়েট আসতে পারবেন?
কি হচ্ছে কি সেটা বলবেন তো?
সেটা তো ডাক্তাররা বলবে আপনারা এলে। আমরা আপনার নাম্বারটা জোগাড় করলাম, করে জানালাম যে বাড়ির লোক হিসেবে আপনারা একটু তাড়াতাড়ি আসুন।
কি হচ্ছে সেটা বলো না তুমি।
পেশেন্ট শরীরটা খারাপ, ভর্তি হসপিটালে, বাড়িতে আপনারা এলে ডাক্তার বলবে।
ওর কি জ্বর হয়েছে?
আপনারা একটু আসুন, জলদি চলে আসুন যত তাড়াতাড়ি পারবেন।
কেন খুব অবস্থা খারাপ?
খুব অবস্থা খারাপ, হ্যাঁ খুব অবস্থা খারাপ, একটু তাড়াতাড়ি চলে আসুন। সুসাইড করেছেন হয়তো, বা কিছু মারা গেছেন। পুলিশ এসেছেন, আমরা হসপিটালে সবার সামনেই রয়েছি, ফোন করছি।
Now, before we played out these conversations, we told you that we cannot authenticate the veracity of these audio clips. We say this because the parents of the young doctor themselves have said that they don't have knowledge about how these audio clips were leaked to the media. Listen to what the father said.
সেটা এই বিষয়ে আমরা জানি না, ওরা
কোথা থেকে হয়েছে,
আপনাদের তরফ থেকে এটা আসেনি?
না না
আপনারা দেননি তাই তো?
এর দায় কি আপনারা নিয়েছেন? যে
না না না, এটা আমরা কেন নেব? কে কোথা দিয়ে কি করছে আমরা সবার দায় নেবো? তাহলে আমাদের তো এমনি আমাদের মাথা এমনি খারাপ হয়েছে।
Here's the administration's communication with the victim has reportedly come under the scrutiny of both the Calcutta High Court and the Supreme Court. In their petition before the High Court, remember, the parents had alleged that they were made wait for 3 hours. They also claimed that the delay was intentional. And if these audio clips indeed are factual, then there are some big questions that need answers. Why were the parents being misled? Number one, first and foremost. Number two, what was the delay in informing the parents about the reality about what had really happened? Third, why was the suicide theory even floated in the first place? Who was the hospital trying to shield? Why did Sandeep Ghosh not file a formal complaint? These are some very important questions which I hope to put across to my guests at this point. Dr. Nikhil, Prasun, spokesperson of the BJP, Tauseef Rahman, national spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, PK Jain, retired senior IPS officer, and Dr. Rajiv Bagai, chairperson of Nephron. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining me at this point. Tauseef, I'll start with you at this point. For 4 days, this probe was with the Kolkata police and by default under the administration of the Bengal government. Yeah. These are some very questions that still are not being answered. Why did Sandeep Ghosh not file a police complaint, which is why initially the case was registered as an unnatural death? Why did the hospital try and pass this off as a suicide when it was very evident from a body, given the brutality and the state in which the mortal remains were, that it possibly was not suicide? Why were the parents told it was suicide? And why was there a delay? Now, these are questions. And why was Sandeep Ghosh rehabilitated in 4 hours? These are questions which, even after the CBI has taken over, still point back to the Mamata Banerjee government.
Good evening, Ritangshu. Ritangshu, absolutely. I mean, these points, you cannot neglect them. It's absolutely fair. And I think from the parents' angle and from the public aspect and prosecutors, everything need to be answered, because this is the same thing. The parents, when they met the Honorable Chief Minister of West Bengal, they said the same. And immediately the superintendent of Arjikar Hospital was suspended. And on the very same day, 5 o'clock, there was a letter issued to them that each and every worker of Arjikar, whether from ward by surgeon or whosoever, will be questioned and will be investigated by the Kolkata police, or if after 7 days the CBI will take over, they will investigate you as well. So you see, I mean, mishap has happened, but I don't think so that there is any shielding processes going on. You know, this is a political motivated question, not by Miran now, not by you, but I do understand many people are arising these questions. But this question is nothing new. This question is from the day one until to 29th of August. But the main agenda is like, did the government of West Bengal took action or not? Yes, they did, Ritangshu. And you know, at the very first day, the CM of West Bengal, she said clearly that I am giving you an ultimatum of 7 days to the Kolkata police. If you guys are not being able to capture anyone or to solve this case, absolutely this case will go to the CBI. Now, Ritangshu, it's a very sad thing. All these questions are very important, has been kept over to Chief Justice, Honorable Chief Justice as well, and the documents have been suspended. But the problem is politics, Rajniti. This shouldn't happen, Ritangshu. It is a very heinous crime, and we all are facing a lot of trouble, not by answering you guys or to the opposition, but the overall situation in West Bengal. I mean, it's not a tense situation, but it is making people very upset. And of course, this thing has to come in front. Now, I have a question. That did Mamata Banerjee, when she wanted to save Sandeep Ghosh, yes, he was transferred. Shouldn't happen. But at that moment of time, the protesters, students, they just said one thing, that we don't want to see this man inside the premises. So immediately this transfer happened. But this transfer was rectified, Ritangshu. 5 o'clock, during 5 o'clock, same day was rectified. He was removed from there as well. Now, if you want to make a propaganda, if you want to make a political motivated thing and spread like this, I mean, I don't know what to say then. I mean, we are working for justice. You know, Ritangshu, I have one more question, and I'll finish. I want to know what is the course of action in the future for our sister and mother. After the incident, there are 65 brutal rape happened in India in this 12 days. I mean, what is the course of action and what is the future laid by the government, whether it's state or central?
Tauseef, that is what happens in the future is a separate discussion. Also, I would like to point out that I am not sure I'm a fan of this sister and mother argument. Needs to be, her dignity needs to be upheld, even if she is not someone's mother or sister or daughter at this point.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to make it very clear, we are not interested in propaganda, which is why we have made it very clear that we cannot authenticate the veracity of these audio tapes. But these audio tapes are saying what the parents have said in court from day one. Also, the reason why I don't want to come across as someone who's furthering a propaganda is because of my question. I know it's not personal, Tauseef, don't worry.
Just 5 seconds.
My next question, which is to Dr.
I don't care about the audio, but I have to respect whatever the parents have said. They have come on the camera and they have complained about this. This cannot be insensitive. I'm sure they are not going to lie like that. We cannot deny that if they have said something.
Fair enough. Okay, yes. But it's also important to keep in mind, Dr. Bagai, I'd like to bring you here in. When I was listening into this audio conversation, I don't want to be the devil's advocate here, but there were some points which did strike to me. If you have to put any of us in the place of the assistant superintendent of the hospital, we have covered a body in a most gruesome and horrific form. And God forbid, we are never given this responsibility in the future. That is to call the parents of the daughter and tell her that this is what has happened. One common sense standard protocol will say that no one will call the parents immediately and say that your daughter has been brutally raped and murdered. The protocol will say that आप जल्दी आ जाइए, फिर आपको आराम से समझाकर बिठाकर समझाएंगे कि क्या हुआ है. So did the assistant superintendent really err initially, not revealing, just saying that she's sick, but constantly emphasizing that the parents have to quickly rush to the hospital?
Good evening, everyone. I think there can be nothing more barbaric and more savage than what we have seen happening with this young girl, brutally raped, murdered. My points are as follows. There have been serious and very, very significant lapses, administratively and even as human beings. I don't think it is appropriate and right to miscommunicate to the family. First, to say that the child is unwell is admitted. then to say that the child has committed suicide, and then finally to have the family here to say that the child is dead. Delay in postmortem, delay in lodging an FIR, the Supreme Court taking cognizance of it. So without going to the past, which everyone knows, I think they've been serial lapses. Someone has to take the responsibility. Even the crime scene apparently was not sanitized and it was contaminated. There was renovation work happening right next door to it. And then there were brutes who came to vandalize the hospital. Doctors are being threatened. This is all going wrong. I'm not a politician. I don't want to take any political sides. But as a doctor, as a human being, what has happened is unforgivable. The family needed to have been told the truth. The family needed to have been told in confidence what has happened. If a particular such an event happens and anyone in the hospital finds such a body, the first thing is to lodge an MLC, which is a medical legal case. It is to inform the family. It is to inform the superiors in the hospital, have what we call as a code. A code is called as in different colors depending upon the gravity of the situation, to see whether the child can be revived or not. Irrespective of what happens, lies, misinformation, and misleading the family cannot be accepted.
PK Jain, would you agree with that view? Now, even if one were to argue the fact that, okay, perhaps it's not the easiest thing to tell a parent that, your daughter has been brutally raped and murdered, but to say that she has died by suicide, which is a blatant lie and a blatant attempted misdeed, do you think that is where a line was crossed? Not to mention the other lapses Dr. Bagai is pointing out, the refusal to file, or at least the refusal to file a formal complaint by the then principal, which led to this initially filed as a unnatural death, and all the other lapses that have come to the fore.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ritangshu, everything went wrong right from the moment go. The first call I can understand. In our own families also, if an unfortunate incident takes place, we never tell the person concerned or the affected family members that the person has expired, because there could be an element of shock. Maybe, the person could have suffered. Yes, the first call I can understand. But subsequently, the second and then the third call, in which it was projected as a suicide, that was absolutely erroneous. It was, it smells of some kind of a conspiracy. And then, the FIR, etc., getting lost very, very late after almost, more than 12 hours, the FIR was lost. I think the hospital authorities have erred in a big way. And the Dr. Ghosh, who was supposed to be in charge of the hospital, the principal, he having been transferred, he should have been asked to proceed on leave. What was the hurry to, install him somewhere as a principal again? Should have been asked to proceed on leave, and the inquiry should have.
So, Mr. PK Jain, I'm sorry to interrupt. I really need your perspective on this. All these lapses that you've mentioned, the delay in filing an FIR only at the behest of the father, the fact that for 4 days, the principal, there was no action taken. He was finally asked to go on leave on Monday when the incident happened on a Friday, and then he was rehabilitated. In terms of letting the initial leads in a probe go cold, as someone who understands how the police work, does that do irreparable damage to the initial phase of investigation, which then even a CBI cannot take after or rectify?
See, it does. By the time CBI entered the court, it was already 7 days. Now, for 4 days, the police were trying to crack their heads to find out as to who the culprit was. They did arrest somebody. That goes to their credit. Finally, that person happens to be the actual accused also. But many other things which could have been collected by way of evidence, those evidentiary value of those things certainly gets diminished or lost. In this case, the crime scene was disturbed. In this case, the post-mortem notes, as they say, could have been tampered with. The post-mortem was conducted in the same hospital. Tell me, Ritangshu, if a doctor cannot tell that this is a case of murder, who else will be able to say that? And unfortunately, in this case, the very fact that the story started from a suicide and the unnatural death was reported in the first place, and it was reported so late. I mean, all these things are pointing to a kind of a conspiracy. And evidentially, as you very rightly said,
the body was discovered at 9:30. The call went out almost 11 a.m. That's a 1.5 hour delay. Firstly, I don't understand how a body can be discovered at 9:30. This woman had classmates and colleagues who knew she working the night shift, and I don't know how the body was not discovered till 9:30. Dr. Nikhil, the remarks which came in from the Trinamool Congress spokesperson is that mistakes were made, accountability has been taken, and action has also been taken, but there seems to be a vested effort to try and continuously keep this political pot boiling instead of learning from these mistakes and making changes for the future. How would you respond to these statements?
Well, the series of lapses and missteps undertaken by the state government, it has unmasked its real character and intentions. It's not only a case of carelessness on the part of the state administration, it also indicates that there is inherent collusion and connivance on the part of the same. Now, who is this principal? The principal was complained against by the Deputy Super, the then Deputy Super Akhtar Ali, way back in 2021. But, despite the fact that the complaints were made, there were 15, 16 points against him that also included, this waste management, smuggling thereof, and biomedical waste, as well as the selling up of the corpses, and as well as 20% commission in all the tenders and all those arbitrariness undertaken by him. But despite despite these things, he was transferred and again got reinstated within 48 hours, and next time within 1 month, and things like that. So the process that was going on in Arjikar, that indicates that he was a big shot. He had a big clout in the state government. Now this time around, the whole thing, he tried to take his time, because in one of the leaked videos, it has been shown that he is there loitering around, and along with other people inside the seminar room, which happens to be a restricted area by then. And after that, the attack took place on the night of 14th. So if we reconstruct and reanalyze the whole thing, we can safely come to the conclusion that the whole thing was a big cover, and it started with suicide theory, and later on the things got
So the
messed
important
up.
thing which I take from your statement, Dr. Nikhil Prasun, is the belief, or at least the notion, that Sandeep Ghosh, who is our principal of Arjikar, was a very powerful man, and he was receiving state patronage. Tauseef and Rahman, you were talking about for future, so I just want to end with that final comments from you. The concern now is that how many other Sandeep Ghoshes are there in the Bengal system here, in institutes or other government offices, who continue to be corrupt, who continue to derelict the duty, but continue to receive state patronage. What is the assurance you can give us today on this platform?
People like Sandeep Ghosh need to be grilled not only in Bengal, Ritangshu, but all over India and all over the states. I mean, Ritangshu, it might not sound insensitive, but the incident can take place anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country, anywhere in the state. Now, the precautionary measures to be handled very carefully. We did our job, okay? And the first thing, we are not here to defend any hospital, whether it's Arjikar or whatsoever. We have submitted the case result to the Honorable Supreme Court, and the Honorable Supreme Court have accepted the report. Now the hearing is going on. Now repeating the same thing by the opposition every day will not bring the justice. It is not going to apprehend anything, Ritangshu. We have to work together. And if Mamata government or the state administration is anywhere at fault, I am sure the Supreme Court will not leave us. We have to answer. And that is the main motive, and that is the main subject.
Fair enough. Yes. Now, I know, Tauseef, you have pointed to the future. I'm sorry, I'll have to wrap this debate here at this point. But taking off from very left, working together, whether it be for the TMC and the BJP, does not mean coming out with, listen, what's happening in your background, what's happening in your background. Correct things are happening in your own background before pointing fingers at others. And then again, the question is, how many more Sandeep Ghoshes, how many more Sanjay Roys are there in Bengal, in the rest of the country? That is collective responsibility that needs to be answered for the future, since that's what we're looking at. Dr. Nikhil Prasun, Tauseef Rahman, PK Jain, and Sanjeev Bagai, thank you so much for joining me on this debate. I wish for a day when we no longer have to debate this issue, because I can understand the triggering effect it has on the country. But unfortunately, it is a seismic event that has shaken up everyone every day. Thanks a lot for joining me on this urban debate. My colleague Shreya joins you on the other side with the top stories on the nation tonight.